Now, some 2,800 people were hurt in those attacks that killed 9 people, including the 10-year-old daughter of a Hezbollah member. That attack coming just hours after Israel did say it would step up the military aims of the war that began almost a year ago when Hamas, the Palestinian ally of Hezbollah, invaded Israel. Charlotte Hughes and Matthew Mary Kerishay have more now about the attacks. And please be forewarned, some viewers may find the following images disturbing.
Ambulances rushed to this hospital in the Lebanese capital after pages used by hundreds of Hezbollah members exploded, killing several people and wounding scores more across the country. In the aftermath, blood banks have opened to help the injured.
I think that this is the least we can do, that one of us would give under these circumstances. And God heal all the injured.
A child was among those killed, according to the Lebanese Health Ministry. Hezbollah, meanwhile, confirmed the death of several of its fighters. Tehran's ambassador in Lebanon was also wounded, according to Iranian media. Due to the probability of mobiles being tracked or hacked, Hezbollah relies strongly on pagers for communication. The Iran-backed Lebanese militant group has pinned the blame on Israel for the incident and vowed retaliation.
Hezbollah's competent agencies are currently conducting a wide-ranging security and scientific investigation to determine the causes that led to these simultaneous explosions.
Israel has not commented on the incident. In a statement issued after the blasts, the Israeli army has advised Israel's residents to remain alert and vigilant, but said it had no changes in its advice to civilians. It comes as tensions in the region are already running high, with Hezbollah and Israeli forces trading near daily fire after the Israel-Hamas conflict broke out. The cross-border exchanges of fire have resulted in tens of thousands being forced from their homes in northern Israel and southern Lebanon. Earlier in the week, the Israeli Prime Minister's office announced that Israel had made returning residents to the north of the country an official war goal. The announcement comes as the US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, heads back to the region this week to try and revive stalled ceasefire talks for the Israel-Hamas conflict.
We're going to talk more about this now with Hugh Lovatt, who's a senior policy fellow at the European Council on Foreign Relations. Hugh, thanks for taking the time to speak to us. Let's start first with just the scale of this operation. How might it have been put in place in the first place?
Indeed, it is quite a tremendous accomplishment for Israeli security agencies. And this is the first time we've seen Israeli security agencies being able to strike at the heart of both Hezbollah and also Hamas. Now, of course, the Israeli government, the Israeli authorities are not commenting on how they did it, but there is already plenty of, I think, well-founded speculation. So as you've been reporting, these pages exploded. Most likely, Israeli security services were able to intercept at some point this shipment of thousands of pages as they were being produced or en route to Hezbollah, and able quite possibly to put in some added explosive residue or explosive material into these devices, and then somehow hack into them once they went into the hands of Hezbollah members, overheating them and making them explode. So it's a tremendous accomplishment at a tactical level. But I think, again, strategically, this doesn't do anything to advance Israeli security, nor indeed de-escalation and regional stability.
But it does seem as this is a sign that Israel, if it is indeed Israel, is willing to take bigger risks in this war. Would you agree?
First of all, we need to understand this from the point of view of Israeli politics. Prime Minister Netanyahu is under growing pressure from his coalition allies, from the Israeli opposition, but also the Israeli public, and especially the 60,000 members or 60,000 Israelis displaced from the north. He's under pressure to do something to address the threat, as Israel sees it, that Hezbollah poses, and that so far Israel has not been able to deter or to resolve after 11 months. So this operation, I think, is good for Netanyahu. He obviously had to himself approve it. It makes him look good. He can argue to the Israeli public that he is doing something. Of course, it's good for Israeli security services, who seem to have been humiliated in terms of not having forewarning of the 7th of October attacks. But the question now is, beyond politics, does this signal a new, I suppose you could call it a new Israeli strategic approach to the north? Does this herald the beginning of a long-anticipated Israeli ground offensive into the south of Lebanon to try to deal with Hezbollah? Or is this just, as I said, just more what could be called kinetic signaling?
What do you think is the answer to those two questions?
I'm tempted to say time will tell, but I think there was an anticipation that the Israeli government would have launched a military offensive over the summer. It had plenty of opportunities to do this, and it so far has not done it. It has not done it, I think, partly to do with Netanyahu's own calculations, partly also to do with Israeli military calculations, in that it's difficult for the Israeli military to fully turn its attention to Hezbollah, to Lebanon, even as it fights in Gaza, even as it's also dealing with an exploding West Bank. However, we need to bear in mind that this situation, a kind of low intensity war between Israel and Hezbollah, can only go on so long, I think, before it does actually morph into a much broader confrontation. As I mentioned, there are these Israeli political considerations at play, but we are increasingly going up this ladder of escalation. Every week we go up one more notch in terms of escalation. Hezbollah will have to retaliate now. It does not want to be drawn into war. But as this time goes on, I think that the chances, unfortunately, of some sort of major conflagration erupting increases, certainly so long as there's no ceasefire in Gaza that could allow for this broader regional de-escalation.
All right, Hugh, thank you for that. Hugh Lovatt speaking to me.